So every time you start something, you're sort of learning how to do it. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, Sherlock, everybody knows that when you do something, you're learning how to do it. But for some reason, this is one thing or one concept that many of us still have problems with. And so I'd like you to work with me on this topic. Personally, I realized that one of the biggest problems we have with starting is the idea that we know we'll not be able to continue it. So most times we hold off on doing stuff or trying out new things because obviously we can't be able to go on with it. That can make you choose not to start the guitar lessons because you know that in the next 2 weeks you're not going to be able to do it again. Or maybe you don't want to start drawing because you know that in a month time you might not really have the same enthusiasm for it as you started in the first place, and that kind of stalls a lot of us from doing the things that we want to do or trying out new things or going into different explorations because we know very well that this cannot be our passion and it cannot really measure up to whatever we're trying to achieve. This was actually something that happened to me at some point because starting off my YouTube channel, I really wasn't scared of whether or not people would tune in. I really wasn't scared of whether I'll be able to make good videos because even when I thought I wanted to start out, I really understood that over time I was going to get better making videos, and over time I would probably get an audience, or even if I didn't, I was probably putting things out there. But my biggest fear was the idea of consistency, the fact that I was probably going to start it and go with so much momentum, and at the end of the day I would end up not doing it anymore. And the fear was crippling because it wasn't just like every other thing that I had started and not done, or I started and stopped. It wasn't like maybe playing snooker today and not playing it next week. This one had a higher stake, and it was more so like the end of it would be televised. So that was something that I was constantly afraid of. I didn't really want anybody to see how much I wasn't able to continue something, so I was holding off on it. Not until I came up with the concept of being a collector, and that's something I would like to talk about in this video. So a collector is apparently a person who collects things of specific type, professionally or as a hobby. And in this case, I would like to talk about a collector as somebody who collects hobbies or somebody who collects skills. In that way, it would be easy for me to explain this concept I'm trying to go for, which is that you must be a collector and work in a way where you feel like you're collecting hobbies. We actually live in a world where we feel like we should have labels, and we live in an era of labels where everybody feels like they should have an identity or a job description. So in as much as people have random things that they do and we have a plethora of things that exist in the world today, many people try to live by a specific job description. They say, okay, I'm a plumber, they say I'm a dancer, I'm a singer, I'm an artist, and all of these things. And it feels like a good way to battle the problems of being overwhelmed in a world that actually has so many options and so many job descriptions that you can exist by, and so many skills that you can learn. So it's much easier for you to just have one thing and not too many things. But that takes us away from being the normal Renaissance man that we used to be, where we had a lot of things that we did and we had a lot of things that we tried out. And so honestly, I would argue for the fact that it's better for you to have something that you do and something that you specifically focus on, at least for a moment in time, before you move on to the next thing, rather than trying to catch two rats at the same time. But I think the issue that this actually created for us was the fact that as young people, we started to fall for the idea of constantly doing something over and over again and constantly chasing streaks. So we always wanted to chase a consistency streak, and that was because most of the legends and icons that we looked up to said the same thing: you should show up every day, never miss a day. And so it became more of an obsession with showing up as opposed to being enthusiastic or curious about what you were going to learn that day or what you were going to come out with that day. So most times it wasn't about the experience of participating, it was about marking your dates in the calendar or marking the streak and making sure that you never break that streak. At the start of the year, I made up my mind to become a collector, and for me, that actually ended up changing a lot of the way I saw things. And like I said, at first I always had the fear of doing things and feeling like I needed to change or feeling like I needed to stick with it. And because I couldn't stick with something, I just said, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try and play basketball today and then not play next week. I'm not going to try and play snooker today and not play next week. I can't play football today because by tomorrow I might not really want to stand up and go to the field again. So that really stopped me from trying out everything. But the moment I realized that every time you did something or every hour that you spend doing something, you actually learn a thing or two from them, or every time you try to explore a new skill, you actually take out something. There's never a time where you do something for a couple hours that you never actually take something from it, whether it's the way your mindset is, whether it's a particular experience that you probably wouldn't be able to relive ever again, or whatever it was just like me realizing that whatever time I spent doing something, I didn't really have to be consistent with it because I could always go back to whatever I was doing. And that really helped me because now that I look back on my year, I actually feel like I had a lot of things that I tried out and I was happy. Maybe not exactly 1 year, maybe it was like in the space of 2 years, but I actually had a lot of things that I did where I would travel without actually thinking, oh, maybe I should become a traveler, or I would play football and say maybe I shouldn't. I didn't really think of becoming a footballer. I just wanted to play football for that day or do anything. I could just learn a language without actually trying to be fluent in that language. I just wanted to learn a particular word or something. And so because of that, looking back at it, I actually had a lot of experience. And that gave me one thing that many people don't have, which is a chance to be multifaceted.
Please welcome Donald Glover.
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover.
I've never seen anybody do as much stuff as he did.
I am the truest repairman.
Zachary, remember? Remember Zachary?
So now I want you to think of different icons that you know. So somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger who started, I don't know if I pronounced that word right, but anyways, let's just go. Think of him who started out as a bodybuilder, went into becoming an actor, and also went into becoming a politician, among other things. Think of somebody like Donald Glover, who is a comedian, an actor, a musician, maybe a rapper or something, and amongst many other things. Think of Jamie Foxx, who, like, that one is just doing everything: impersonation, comedy, acting, singing, whatever. There's so much more. Kanye West, who started as a producer, went on to become a fashion icon, and then let's say is an activist now. Besides the newer versions, there are many people who started off, like think of Albert Einstein, who is a renowned physicist but at the same time was actually a skilled violinist. Think of Neil deGrasse Tyson, who actually started off as a competitive boxer. I never knew that. An astrologist, which most of us know as. And then we go on to the grandmaster of the Renaissance man era, which is Leonardo da Vinci, who I really admire, and he did a lot of things as well. And I think all of these people have one thing in common, which isn't necessarily just the obsession with the work or the ADHD or the autism or something. I don't know if these people had autism, but I just expect that they probably had something. I don't know. Aside that, I actually felt like I realized that these people had a very curious mind. Like, there was extreme level of curiosity that they had. They were not coming into work every day thinking I have to do this again or I have to mark this streak. They always came in with that curiosity of, oh, I need to learn something. What is it about the earth? What is it about the world that I can actually take from today? What is it about music that I can learn from? What is it about comedy that I can take from? And so because they came in with that mindset, it was always easy for them to continue doing that same thing over and over again, as opposed to coming in and feeling like a burden or a fear of stopping because you know very well that you're not supposed to stop. And at the end of the day, the beautiful part of it was that they came out being multifaceted artists, becoming the geniuses that we know in the world today. So one of the beauties of having a low interest span is that you end up knowing a little about everything, which in this day and age is even easier to do because you can always turn on your phone or turn on YouTube and learn something about cars even though you never saw the car before. You can learn how to plumb without actually knowing how to do it in the first place. You don't really need 10,000 hours to know a little about everything. You don't really need to dedicate your time to master different things. You just have to know very little and know enough to get away with not knowing or not being a guru at it. This is not an argument for being multifaceted. It's an argument for knowing that whenever you start something, there is really never a downside to doing them in the first place. You doing it or starting off at it, and whether you stop or not, is a lot better than never trying out something that you feel an attraction towards. Consistency is actually a regular building of an identity, and the way you're supposed to think of it is every day you clock in, and for some reason you don't really become an artist without actually doing art daily, or at least thinking about doing art daily. You don't really become a musician without doing music or trying out music on a regular basis. Doing, or the act of doing regularly, actually builds our identity. But I think the reason most artists end up burning out is because we think of art and we think of consistency as a streak. We think of it as something we have to do daily, and then it becomes a source of burden or a reason for us to be afraid or scared, rather than us being happy about the exploration of something new. So I think the main thing that we should think about is that consistency is actually a byproduct of our constant curiosity with each session of work. So every time that you clock into work, you're opening up and trying to find out something new, or trying to figure out something new about your art that you haven't done before, or trying to figure out something new about music that you haven't learned before. And there's this excitement that it builds. There's this feeling of, yo, I'm just trying out something that I've never been able to do, I've never thought about before. And every day you can always have something. There's a plethora of things that you can learn from, and there's a lot of things that you can learn from, which is why think about most of the artists that you get so obsessed with today and we admire today are people who always approach art with the mindset of, I really want to see what I can do today. I really want to see if this works. I really want to see if I put the colors in this particular way, I'm going to find out something new, or I'm going to see something that I haven't seen before. So it's very important for you to understand that your consistency should come out of curiosity. One thing you should realize is that being multifaceted, the goal here isn't for you to be a jack of all trades. My conversation today isn't for you to start things and try as much as possible to do so many things at once, but I think this conversation is about starting. Most times we talk about consistency before we talk about the issue of starting, and the fear of not being able to continue something is one of the main reasons why we end up not starting in the first place, which is why that is the conversation I chose to have right now. So like I said, it's not about being a jack of all trades, but even if you happen to be a jack of all trades, you will always be better off than just doing one thing or nothing in the first place. So do that, but always have something that you get more curious about than everything else. And the thing about humans is that we have a hierarchy of the things that we find attractive. We have a hierarchy of the skills that we have. You might be a farmer who knows how to hunt, but it doesn't change the fact that you're a farmer. You are mostly a farmer. You might be an artist who knows how to do mechanical engineering, but it doesn't change the fact that you are mostly an artist. So in that sense, it means that you have the capacity to do one thing and one thing very well, which means that there's always that one thing that you have to put your 10,000 hours into. There's always that one thing that you have to show up more for. But I think that is something we're wired to do, and it's not something that we do out of the feeling of keeping a particular streak. You have to have a routine. You need to have a routine in order to continue, but your routine should come out of curiosity. My point is exactly. No matter how good you are at doing a lot of things, there are always the things that stand out to you. There are always things that you do very well and you put in enough time to do so well, or better than the rest of the things you know how to do, or even better than other people can do them. And those are the things that you tend to focus on, whether you like it or not. So it's important for you to put in that time and put in that work and put in that effort. But many of the icons that you know, like the ones I listed and many others, actually have an openness to learning things. They actually have the openness to learning things in general, not particularly the things that they do every day. So it's not really a source of burden. It's just a mindset shift to where you are thinking of being consistent and showing up every day from a place of curiosity. You're not thinking of it in the sense that that's something that you always have to do. After some time, you probably would find out the things that are fully tested and trusted over time, and the things that are tested and trusted over a space of time are the things that you probably should do for a career path or for work or something. I don't know whether I should argue for you doing everything that always makes you feel happy for work, but at the same time, when it comes to being consistent, you have to pick the things that you feel comfortable doing and you know that you can always do, and you can always keep exploring from, or to keep tapping from, or keep giving to, in order for you to know that, okay, this is something I want to do. And so you have to approach it as a child. Like, think about the fact that as kids, there were many things that we learned how to do. There were many things that we tried out and we kept doing them every day until we were very good at them. And you might actually argue that this was because of our neural pathways or whatever people can explain them as, but at the same time, it was because at the time we didn't really think about whether or not we're keeping a streak. We didn't really think about whether or not this was actually going to keep working, or whether or not we're going to make a career out of it, or we didn't really think about the future. It was just always every day we showed up and we're so curious about what we did, and we wanted probably the instant validation or whatever. And it was always about that day. What are we learning today? And then when we went to sleep, we thought about it like, yo, I really want to go back to sleep. I really want to see this tomorrow. Like, I want to see what I can do tomorrow. And when you did that tomorrow, the next day, you always thought of, oh, what can I do the next day? Like, how much better can I do it? And then you look back at it and you realize, I actually built a consistent streak without actually thinking of a consistent streak. And like I said, being a collector, you can actually use the analogy of a collector. A collector never really thinks about, okay, I have to take 30 more. At least a good collector will not really think about taking 30 more, doing what am I going to take next. So I have to take an artwork every day in order to be a collector per se. But at the end of the day, there's this curiosity that they have, and there's this enthusiasm that they have for collecting different works. And when they see an artwork, they almost develop this dopamine sensory effect, and they always want to keep that work, to hold on to them. And then after however long period of time they have with the work, they realize that they look back and probably they have a filled up room, or they have the gallery that is full of artworks. But it wasn't really the mindset of, I have to consistently carry works, I have to consistently hoard and own works. It was about the curiosity and the feeling of exploration that they had, and the feeling of holding on to things that they have. So if you're going to become a collector, always know that whenever you see a skill and you feel like you want to try something, or you see an experience and you feel like you want to try that out, try it out. Never really think about whether or not you're going to continue that. In terms of becoming consistent, that's probably something I'm going to have to explain in the next video in order for you to understand where I'm coming from in terms of consistency. But keep in mind, first off, you have to be a collector. You have to think of art with a level of curiosity of a child, or the level of acquisition that a collector has. So keep in mind. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. I will give a better explanation as to how to be consistent and how to build consistency out of curiosity. So make sure to listen to the other videos. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll love you to subscribe to see the next video. And also do make sure to watch other videos within the channel. I have a long list of videos that would be very insightful for you if you're a creative. Thank you very much for listening again, and I'll see you next time. Peace.